Welcome back to Raw Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. On today's episode, we plumb the depths of disappointment. First, with what I like to call the passion of Andrew, and then how we feel when our favorite boutique guitar manufacturer introduces a budget line. Stay tuned.
It's like I find that cheapening things is actually quite an American thing. That's, take whatever
absolutely.
it is and then let's see if we can cheapen it.
Yes, the high margin cheap thing wins. But before we get into guitar industry economics today.
Well, I'm talking about everything really.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I mean, like, take everything and just cheapen it. And you can't get more American than that.
Cheap means high margin.
That's true. Well, it can mean that.
It can mean that.
It can mean almost no margin in your
or high volume.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I need to get something off my chest.
Okay, is it a chest burster? Is it one of those aliens?
Yes. Well, let's get something out of
I told you taking
chest.
that Airbnb to the Nostromo was a bad idea.
This Halloween, if I can get Gabby, our Chihuahua Shiba Inu mix dude, like white t-shirt, just cut a hole in it in blood and stuff, and then just poke the doggo head through it, right? You just wear like one of those like baby Bjorns and just put the doggo in there, and then just the Chihuahua bursting out of my chest. I think that'd be the best costume.
How are you going to time that though? How are you going to make sure that the Chihuahua bursts from your chest at exactly the right?
Well, she would just be burst out of my chest for the whole social engagement.
I'm sure Gabby will be right on board with that.
Right. Well, until a treat appeared or someone showed up on the doorstep,
or I've seen when she was next to me walking in. My God, I can only imagine it's like a trick or treater. Jeez.
I know. Well, whatever it takes to get those treats, man.
That's true.
So,
ironically, that's a very Halloween kind of expression too. Whatever it takes to get those treats.
That's right.
That's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. She's a smart doggo.
Yeah, but as a grown adult, I can just go to the store and buy treats whenever I want.
Right. Yeah.
What? I don't have to wait for Halloween or Easter or Christmas. I can just go whenever I get it.
Except as adults, there's like heavy metabolic consequences to enjoying those treats.
Heavy metabolic!
Heavy metabolic. I like that. Yeah. Dude, there's an album title right there. Yeah.
Sponsored by, was it GD? What's the freaking GNC?
Sponsored by GNC. Oh, yeah, right.
Brought to you by GNC. Heavy metabolic.
Or what's that T-Force testosterone booster? And she'll like it too.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever Doug Flutie's selling.
Right, yeah, dude. Which, you know what? Got to give him props. I had forgotten about Doug Flutie.
It's freaking, it's like, it's something, it's almost like,
It's
like it's like something eugenics. I'm like, that's a little close to eugenics. Does anyone not notice that?
It's like, okay, do you think the average...
I don't think the guy who was pushing eugenics was a swell guy. I'm pretty sure that was...
No, not at all.
We'll put our whole lifestyle betterment brand built around something that sounds kind of like eugenics.
He did fly the Spruce Goose though.
I guess that's true.
Or no, I'm sorry. It was Charles Lindbergh. He flew around the world first or something, right?
No. I mean, Hitler's the one that's most known for eugenics. That was
I know, but among Americans, like Lindbergh was a major supporter of eugenics and other bad ideas.
Yeah, yep. It's true. That's another proud tradition. So.
He was sort of like the modern day Musk.
The Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes kind of was too. Yeah.
I mean, that's all. We all know who they are, though. I guess at the end of the day, they got that cash, baby. Oh, yeah.
They were portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio
exactly
later on.
That's all that matters.
Really, it is, yes.
Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah, so I've got to get something off my chest here. So we have to talk about my buddy Andrew.
Okay. Do we have to?
Yeah, we kind of do.
Law I'm not aware of that got passed?
No, this is just for my own therapy.
Okay.
Because dude,
I will play the part of the therapist.
Because I had a wild dream last night.
Okay, we got to keep this PG though, right?
No, we don't.
This is no Louis Shortsted's
No,
name,
well, no, Louis Shortstead wasn't in the dream.
Oh, not this one. Okay.
And I'll tell you why at the end.
Okay.
But well, there's a lot of reasons why. But
one of the reasons why.
So my buddy Andrew has been pining for this Ibanez J Custom that we have at Skips.
That's a very laudable goal, actually.
Great guitar, right?
Japanese, right? Japanese,
absolutely. It's like above prestige.
Is that an RG series or is it S series?
Yeah, it's an RG series.
Okay,
yeah,
well, that's the best freaking one you can get. So for
absolutely, man, killer black burst. It's got the Tree of Life inlay on it.
The sabers are pretty cool too. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, dude, the S series are great too. Yeah, I mean they're equal in terms of quality, right? It's just what field do you prefer?
I like the RG better personally. That's me.
I do too, but I mean, I'm a big guy, so I want a bigger guitar.
Yeah, and
right?
it's got the pointiness to it too, which is
I do like pointiness.
Yeah,
it does help when in terms of like slaying your enemies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the sharp edges I always thought were cool on the RG, and also the cut. Well, actually, the Saber's cutaway is pretty damn big too.
Yeah, the Saber is cool. So the RG, it was designed by Steve Vai in conjunction with Hoshino, right?
Yeah, well, basically, it's a version of the gem that's not with the monkey grip, and
right. And there were, there was his old performance guitar that he like carved the lower horn out of to make it pointy, right?
Yep,
so that inspired the gem, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the gem and the RG are very similar guitars. It's just
right. Well, the RG was like the 550. The RG 550 was like the, I don't want to say affordable, but the production. I mean, this
standard version.
Yeah, well, this will fold into our conversation
By the way,
later
that
on the
550 is
podcast.
actually a really softer guitar now, especially like those early 90s, like 550s. That's,
Oh, yeah, that's a great guitar. Well, I mean, they make them again, so...
I know, but the original ones, it's like everything else.
Yeah.
Like an original Night Swan from Kramer is worth a hell of a lot of money now.
Right, no, I agree. Yeah. I will say that the modern ones are better because they have the 5-piece neck, which is stronger. You know, back in the day, the Wizard neck, originally the Wizard neck had problems with twisting.
Yeah, it was just a regular old maple, right? Just
yeah, it was just 1-piece maple, and then it had the joint. There was no volute.
the neck going into the headstock.
That's right, exactly. So headstock.
So it wasn't one piece of wood. That's the joint with the headstock.
Right, there was the joint there, but the rest of the neck was one piece of wood with, of course, a truss rod in it. But those yeah, I know.
Oh my God! Talk about forward thinking. Holy crap!
Right?
They had truss rods in the 90s.
They had anything in the 90s?
Well, terrible music. It was very plentiful.
Yes, right. Well, yes, our listeners know this, but yeah. So in the early Wizard necks, I mean, I'm talking 80s too, like the necks.
Like 88, 89. Yeah.
Yep. I think 87 was the first year.
Oh, okay. Was it
for the?
Did he have? I thought he didn't have the RG, the gem until he was doing the Skyscraper album, which was 88.
Well, but I mean, that album was recorded probably well in advance.
Oh, you're talking about prototypes.
I'm sure he had prototypes and all that, yeah.
I mean, I'm not mistaken, though. Is that correct? I think he didn't have the gym until after the Skyscraper. He might not have the gym until freaking Passion and Warfare.
I really don't know, because I know the RG, it was 87 that they released the RG 550, and that was after the gem.
Huh. Okay, maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm probably just totally wrong on that.
So RG stands for Roadstar Guitar.
Okay.
Which they wanted to call their Strat.
I thought it stood for rock guitar.
No, it stands for Roadstar Guitar. So originally in the early 80s, they had the Roadstar series.
I remember, yeah.
Right, and they wanted to call it the Roadster series, but there was a copyright strike on the word Roadster. So they called it the Roadstar. So RG stands for Roadstar Guitar.
Okay.
So they that was a certain Strat body shape with like the old Ibanez Pro tremolo. I forget. It was called something like that. But this is like pre-Edge. This is before they had the
still
license
Floyd,
for the
or talking about like a standard kind of Fulcrum style bridge.
Not a Floyd, but it was back when everybody was trying to come up with their own take on a Floyd. So
kind of that version of a Kaler, sort of.
Yeah, well, not even a Kaler, right? So
I mean, like in the sense that it's a locking thing, but it's not a Floyd Rose.
Yeah, most of those were like single locking at the nut, but the bridge was it was like a Fulcrum style trem that they somehow force fed fine tuners onto. Huh. So if you're a kid,
I'm totally unaware of this guitar. That's amazing,
dude. I know. I know too much about this shit. Yeah. So you'll still find old Roadstars at your local pawn shop. Actually, I think Paul Gilbert has a video on Instagram, at least in the last year, where he's playing one.
Okay.
Like the old body style, right? So, so that's what the RG is all about. The S series, there was a guitar that was marketed under its own brand name called the Maxxas.
Okay.
Maxxas. So
Max
you guys can,
ass.
Yes, Max Ass, except it was 2 X's, but yeah. It was 1 X and 2 X's.
They also run into copyright infringement with Janet Jackson, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah. They couldn't use the word ass, and so they just added an X and subtracted an S. Yeah. So again, you guys can look it up on eBay, Reverb, on the interwebs, right? But the Maxxas guitar, it was all super contoured. It was kind of like, remember like the Ford Taurus came out, and it was like not all square and boxy like other 80s cars were.
Like, wow, could be like something RoboCop would drive.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. Exactly. Man, love RoboCop.
Yeah. RoboCop.
Didn't we just celebrate RoboCop? He like died for us and then rose from the grave 3 days later. If you watch the movie, that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so RoboCop had his big day on Sunday.
I think
I hope everybody
John
had a nice
3:16, something like Dead or Alive are coming with me, right? That's
that's exactly right. Yeah.
pretty sure. That's the quote, right? I think I got that right.
What's your name, son? Murphy. So we celebrated RoboCop's big day, a couple days ago.
Wonderful.
Anyway, so S stands for Saber.
Okay, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
the Saber series. But so it's predecessor.
I always associate it with Frank and Bali. That's the guy I always think of.
Totally. The yellow S series. Yeah. So he, so the predecessor was the Maxis guitar. So that's where the RG and the S series come from.
Is this one of the things where they kind of absorbed that guitar brand or something? Is that what ended up happening?
Well, I think I think it just made more business sense to like they use the same like the S series. It's got like that flat edge on the sides.
I mean, like, did Ibanez just buy that company out and just say take their design or something?
No, it was their own like pet project that.
So they just like ripped it off and made an Ibanez version of it, or
no, it was their. It was just it'd be like if you were Ford also introducing Lincoln cars.
Oh, okay. So it's like an off brand, but they bought that brand though.
It was their brand. They made it up. They didn't have to buy the brand. It was their brand.
Okay. So I thought this was like a mom and pop kind of thing that it was.
No.
And they acquired it or something.
No. They just it was just they designed this guitar that was radically different, so they decided to not write Ibanez on it because they wanted it to have its own.
Oh, it's like Jackson did. Same thing. Like they instead of doing Charvel, you put the name Jackson on the original on the Rhodes V.
Yeah, there you go.
Because that way, if it bombed, it would only be the Jackson brand that's going down in flames.
Yep, there you go. Yeah. So the Maxis brand went down in flames.
Okay, sure.
I mean, although those are sought after as well.
Yeah,
but
I mean, people who know what it is. It's very niche. Because I can't believe this. It's the first I've heard of that. That's
had a really interesting, like, sort of purple to pink, like, iridescent metallic finish on it.
Yeah, I mean, that was so cool back in those days.
Every
guitar, like greens and yellows and pinks and reds and stuff. It was really cool. Yeah.
Totally. So anyway, there's some cool guitar history, everybody. Go check it out. Yeah,
the history that I even didn't know.
Well,
that's pretty awesome, dude. That's
man, I spent too much time in music retail. Let me tell you. So things were going well for Andrew.
Yeah, he was on track to success.
Yeah, he already owns a killer Ibanez Prestige that like I threatened to buy, and it's 27 frets on one end. It's like very new. Yeah, so like he's exhibited good taste before.
Yeah, I feel like there's a shoe about to drop.
Yeah, dude, totally. So he was all lined up to get the Ibanez J-Craft.
Okay,
right.
This is kind of like one of those movies you see like in health class or something like that.
Yeah, yep.
Jonathan had it all.
Red Asphalt 15.
Then, one bad decision.
Right, changed everything. So. So he was he just got a job at the bikini car wash,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Like every kid's dream. And
absolutely, I told him, dude, if you're going to get a job at the car wash, make sure to wear your bikini. Yeah. And he took my advice and got hired.
Especially the guys. That's why people go there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
so
just on brand,
so now he's making a ton in tips, just showing a little leg at the car wash.
Do what you gotta do, man. Shake it.
That's right. And all in the pursuit of this very worthy guitar, right?
Yeah. That's something I don't know how many lives are worth that guitar. I mean, who knows? Whatever you got to do,
dude. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, you've got like the whole strength of the entire country of Japan behind it,
which is Godzilla behind that too.
That's right. I mean,
that's amazing. So
yes, absolutely. Yep. It's a real kaiju of a guitar. So I was so happy that Andrew finally, was going to have some money to buy it. And anyway, so he comes to his lesson. He comes to his lesson last Thursday. Fuck, I almost can't say it.
It's okay, man. You're strong. You'll get through this. Express yourself. We're here to support you.
So he shows up at his lesson, Scott.
Okay. Expected, because there's an appointment. He has a lesson appointment with you, so that's not, he just showed up out of the blue. Right? That's
right. No, totally. Yeah. Yep. It was a reschedule.
Oh, damn!
I know.
So you should have known,
bruh.
Something strange was afoot.
Something was up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. I could tell. Yeah, there was a disturbance in the force.
Yep. Exactly.
Dude, he shows up with a new acoustic guitar.
How would you handle it, man? Did you let him know? Like, what if they just shook you to your core? Right.
You know
there?
what?
Like,
I was
keep it deep inside, and you're trying to be supportive. I mean, how'd you handle it?
It's tough, dude. I was in shock. Like, it still had the price tag on it, so I thought maybe he was just kind of checking it out.
A lesson or something.
Right? Yeah, totally. Maybe.
But still, why would you do that? Like, there's
no, I don't know.
That doesn't make sense.
I have no idea, man. Yeah. I think my friend and roommate tricked him into it. I don't know.
That must have been some kind of mind control or something.
Yeah, man, but I just, I try to take care of my students. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But he actually told you he's going to buy a guitar, though. I don't understand.
Right.
Like, why would he show up with that?
I don't know. Like, I don't.
I mean, what's to be gained? I guess is the question.
I don't feel like I know Andrew anymore. You know what I mean?
It's parts of him that you're not privy to.
Like last night, dude, I had like the worst nightmare.
Okay.
Like, dude, okay, so it started off cool, right? I was back at Hoshino headquarters, right?
Okay.
And
back. So have you been to Hoshino headquarters?
No, I wish I had been.
Okay.
But, so I'm at Hoshino headquarters, right?
Yep. You and Godzilla are walking through the QC tests and all.
Yeah, right. Me and Gojira, right? Not a French metal band, but the actual.
That'd be cool. They're there too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool. So I'm with both Gojira and Gojira.
Yeah, exactly.
The murdering giant lizard and the murdering French metal band.
Yeah, probably not murdering, but the appearing at the Olympics opening ceremony French metal band.
Yeah, dude, there was
Yeah,
there was some decapitation. There's some Marie Antoinette shit going on. Yeah.
Metal.
So I'm there, and Mr. Hoshino greets me at the front door, and I'm like, "Hey, Mr. Hoshino, I'm ready for my factory tour of the custom shop." And he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We got wind that your student Andrew, like we had a celebration planned because that was going to be the 1 billionth J-Craft sold in the United States, but then we found out that he, dishonored us."
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't commit harikiri right there in front of you, did he?
No, absolutely. And so we've actually converted the factory into making just wooden stools.
Yeah, because why even bother making guitars?
Right. No so that, apparently we can't rely on our expected clientele anymore. Yeah. So we just make wooden stools.
We're going to do,
people can sit in the back of coffee shops, like playing acoustic guitar.
Yeah, because that's
to like 2 or 3 people.
Because that's real, man. That's
real. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's, and that's why Louis Shortstud wasn't in the dream, because the stools were too high.
He couldn't get on him.
He couldn't get on top of
Maybe they have a little
stool.
ladder going to the top of the stool. That'd be good.
No, but I mean, things are tough in my dream at Hoshino.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. They've
right?
pretty much come out. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. It was tough. And then he told me, look, dude, and he's like, Ryan, it's worse. Like, Saber Tiger broke up.
Oh my God.
And all the members just like, they all became singer-songwriters.
Oh, I think all the new acoustic singing.
You're right. They're all new acoustic singer-songwriters.
No one understands me.
Yeah, it's rough. Dude, it was tough. And then I woke up in like a cold sweat. Right. I mean, I told Andrew, it's like, dude, you just like skipped to the like end shitty part of the movie Rockstar.
Yeah, exactly. But you didn't do the cool part in the middle.
Yeah, you totally skipped the cool, like, 2/3 of the movie, and you just skipped to like the sucky part.
Yeah, that I've always felt like when someone when one on an acoustic guitar, I'm like, okay, now the goal eventually is to get to an electric guitar, right? This is not the end goal. Like, this acoustic thing is just a now thing, right? We're moving towards electric guitar. That's what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah,
I always try and make that clear to them. That's the expectation. We're not staying here, right? We're just this is like a layover. This is like going to like Milwaukee, and you're gonna be there for an hour, and then you're gonna fly to New York, right? We're not staying in Milwaukee.
It's just like have a Sam Adams and get a Cinnabon, and then move on
back on the next flight, and
exactly.
Get to where you should be going, not wherever this place is. You know what I mean?
So I just don't know, man. I feel like I don't know Andrew anymore.
Yeah, you probably don't. I mean, there's probably all kinds of skeletons buried in that backyard, probably metaphorically and physically.
Right.
I would watch my ass now.
Who knows what skeletons are buried in his car wash bikini?
Exactly. Well, that's what that's how he got the job. There was another guy there, and he just assumed his identity. Exactly.
What I mean? That's what he did. Oh, so he just used the chloroform and stole the other dude's bikini.
Yeah, and then now he's now bikini guy at the car wash.
I see. Yeah, so
Classic.
I don't know, man.
Watch America's Most Wanteds every other week.
It's tough, dude. So it's I don't know. I guess Andrew's going to be like singing about his feelings now and stuff.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Fuck, I know. Thanks.
I had a really similar experience literally just yesterday. I was trying to teach a student Judas Priest's Breaking the Law.
Nice. Good. That's good. That's good work.
And the student looked at me and he says, "Oh, this is the only Judas Priest song I like."
Oh, what?
And I went, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, what about Painkiller?" And it was so awesome. He's like, "Well, my whole goal eventually is to play Green Day." And I was like, "What? You'd rather play American Idiot than freaking Painkiller? Are we living? What kind of world are we living in?"
Although I don't hate American Idiot. I mean,
I don't hate it, but it's not Painkiller, man.
No, it's
it's like look, there's nothing wrong with Green Day, but Green Day is like settling for a Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's. It's fine.
Had your student had he listened to other Judas Priest songs and then decided this is not for me?
Nope. The only bands that he likes are Green Day and Metallica. And Metallica,
And probably not Metallica, but
Metallica, Black Album forward. Yep, exactly. So this is a good example for people out there listening, though. Like when you're a guitar instructor, your job is to support your student. And I'm sorry, I'm sure you supported Andrew in his terrible decision.
I did. Well, I mean, I tried. Yeah, absolutely.
But when the student tells you all I want to do is play Green Day, you just have to smile.
You have to teach them Green Day.
Well, no. Then what you do is the machinations start at that point. You think, okay, now what can I do to make this person decide he wants to play real guitar?
Yeah,
how can I feed him Green Day with this bitter pill of like painkiller underneath it or something like that?
Right.
Let's get him.
Or like taking like the root third chords that are in like Holiday and being like, here's why we need to understand triads.
Yeah.
Because here's Billy Joe doing it.
But here's a song called "Wasted Years" from Iron Maiden. Check this out, or check out this is a hot teacher from Van Halen. Like let's actually play some real guitar. You know what I mean? As opposed to just strumming bar chords. You know what I mean?
If you want to play a boxy power chord riff, here's "Fantasy" by Aldo Nova. And
or
look,
"Rock Like a Hurricane" by the Scorpions.
Right.
Which, by the way, the next song we did was
Rock Like a Hurricane. Good man. Excellent. Yeah.
I'm trying to see, the plan is all coming together. I'm going to eventually get this kid to realize that Green Day is like a pit stop on the side of I-95 on the way to somewhere.
And I'll have a plan for rescuing Andrew at some point. Yep. I'm still just in such shock.
You're going to let him stew in that prison of his own making for a little while before you bring the helicopters in to save him. And
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, maybe he'll see the light, on his own while he's out in the wilderness.
Cards on the table. I did go through my own acoustic guitar time when I was in my early 20s. And that's when I realized that girls like acoustic guitars, and he might be going through something similar.
Yeah, well, we already warned him that, dude, just never just play acoustic guitar for a woman that didn't ask you to.
No, I get it, but
that's the worst thing in the world.
Personal experience. Playing clubs for sweaty dudes.
No, I agree with that.
Playing coffee houses and college bars for 100 totally hot 20-year-old babes.
well, okay, but see, that's
like a pretty big difference. That was like an eye-opening for 20-year-old Scott. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, girls like this acoustic thing. Oh my God!
See, I did the same thing just with an electric guitar. That's literally
you gotta one up me, don't you?
That's literally how I met Misty.
I know.
I was playing electric guitar in a band.
Yeah, I know. Same thing. I met my ex that same way too. So but that being said,
but were you playing acoustic guitar?
Electric guitar.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I was going to say the acoustic might have been.
But no, this was the way. It's more inspiring, when you're looking out at an audience to see okay, everywhere I look is hot girls as far as I can see.
No, I wholeheartily agree. I mean, dude, that's
as opposed to a bunch of sweaty dudes going. Ugh.
Yeah, that's why in my early 20s I left the whole extreme death metal thing.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with sweaty dudes.
No, there's not. Not at all.
It's just
sometimes I'm a sweaty dude.
It's almost summer. It's coming soon. So
that's right.
A lot of sweaty dude.
Hell yeah, dude! I've already knocked out 3.25 miles today.
Nice, good job.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. I'm power walking.
You are. You're doing it, man. Good job.
You got it. Fuck yeah.
That's awesome. But I mean, that was. So I can't judge too harshly. I guess what I'm trying to say. I went through my own acoustic guitar phase. You know what I mean? I played coffee houses with just me and an acoustic guitar.
So you're saying there's hope for Andrew?
There is definitely hope.
I hope so. He's a good guy, man.
Your heart can have many chambers. Some part. This is the acoustic guitar loving part. This is the electric. We're gonna rip your face off with metal stuff. This is the shred stuff. This is the fusion stuff.
I just if one of those chambers is just all backed up with patchouli, then true. Then you could have a heart attack.
One of the upsides of the music industry not really existing anymore, though, is that there isn't really any dominant thing that is the one thing that you go to every when we were in the 90s,
except for mediocrity.
But mediocrity has always been pretty pleasant. but it's which form of mediocrity is. I remember going to any coffee house in the 90s, and there were so many more back then. And it wasn't all Starbucks either. It was a bunch of other kinds of coffee houses.
Oh yeah, there was True Love Coffee House downtown.
So many different ones.
There was
there's a bunch of them.
There was one near the bookstore. This is all Friends era.
Yep, 96, 97, that kind of thing. But anyway, every single place you'd walk in would be a dude with an acoustic guitar and a little PA singing all the pop hits of the day and stuff. That was everywhere. That was a whole thing back in the 90s. That wasn't just on Friends. That actually really happened. That was a thing. Much like flip phones, it was a real thing.
I probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but there's an alternative theory for the end of Friends where Phoebe wakes up on a park bench.
You told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently the entire series has been a dream, kind of like Newhart.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like Newhart. Yeah,
right. And Phoebe's actually a junkie, and she's just been looking through the window at Central Perk to see all these friends hanging out, so the series is just her daydream about what it would be like if those people were really her friends and she weren't a homeless junkie.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to believe Friends is.
No, man, it's a beloved cultural touchstone.
Yeah, no, it's garbage.
Much like Seinfeld.
Also garbage.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And now back to the show. All right, so anyway, we've actually been winding around a lot. We'd like to do this sometimes, but what I wanted to talk about today, what I really wanted, the thrust of what I wanted to do, it was talk about boutique manufacturers, like really known as high-end, highly respected guitar manufacturers who are starting to now make stuff overseas. They're affordable stuff. We'll talk about it in a second, like the affordable versions of these guitars. Yeah. So the ones that I'm thinking of specifically are like Music Man, which has got the Sterling line, which is made in Indonesia. If you think about like we got PRS, which is making I think it started in Korea, but then now it's in Indonesia. Is it? Yeah. Well, I remember like when they first introduced the PRS SE line. Yeah. Like they contracted with a particular Korean manufacturer. It wasn't Samick, but if you look on the back of the headstocks, it's probably the same factory. Like they're very proud of who they are because it's proudly manufactured by something Industries in Korea. Like it's so memorable. It's a big stamp. Yeah, I get you. So, but they started. That was a big deal because PRS was like the high end guitar, and then they started making this like import line. Yeah, it was your high end, your grandfather's guitar. And then I just now found out recently that James Tyler guitars, which is sort of the high end boutique stuff that like guys like Dan Huff and Steve Lukather were playing. It's a company that kind of grew out of the Valley Arts kind of branch. Yeah, right? I'm shocked to hear but that making company still exists even as the boutique company. Well, no, there's a lot of really high end boutique companies that are making like just a small. They just have maybe they employ 8 people or something like that. Yeah, the James Tyler guitars is very similar to like VGA guitars or like Suhr guitars. It's the same sort of that sort of level. It's like $3,000 to $5,000 guitars. Is kind of it's just VGA is like so much more well known and like Suhr is like legendary. Like I put that on like the level of like Friedman guitars. Sure. Well, Friedman guitars is actually less as a guitar. The people think of them as an amp company that just happens to make guitars. Well, but great guitar. Well, Grover Jackson's working for him. Did he actually? He's back to working in his own company now. Yeah, there's actually the GLX guitars that Grover made on his own brand, which were actually killer too, but they just never caught on. Okay, so I remember there was like the GJ2, Grover Jackson 2, so that's gone. That was a thing, and then he worked for Friedman. Now he's back to doing his own thing again. So what's he calling his own thing now? I can't remember. I just have to look it up. It's all the same stuff though. If you look at the GJ2, GJ2, yeah, those ones they're great guitars. Totally great guitars. Awesome. I just need to know where Grover. Like if I'm gonna get another Super Strat, which I know I will. One of my life like all time things that was happening to me was at the NAMM show like a couple years ago, like whenever it was, and I met Grover. I got to sit and talk with him for a few minutes. It was like the coolest thing ever. I'm like, dude, you're Grover Jackson. How did it stack up to our meeting Gary Kaler? It was much close. It was just it was more chill. I just kind of walked away. Hey, Grover, I'm a huge fan. I wouldn't the guitars I play. I'm with this company VGA, but my guitar is very much built off of the bones of what you did. Like nothing that I would do would be existing if it wasn't for what you did. You're a legend. He was very. He just he strikes me as just a real dude. He just wants to do the work. He doesn't give a shit about the fame of it. He just wants to do. He loves building guitars. He loves manufacturing. He loves the whole thing. The design, and that's something that's super respectable. And I mean, every guitar that Ryan and I both love really grows out of what Grover Jackson did. Yeah, Comparison started off as Jackson's Japanese custom shop, and Charvel was basically Grover building those guitars. All the stuff that the heroes that we grew up listening, like the Jakey Lees and Eddie Van Halens and Warren DeMartinis and all those guys. Yeah, Jackson guitars. Those Jackson and Charvel because some of those guys. Wayne Charvel. Yeah, Wayne Charvel gets. Well, Wayne Charvel is the name of the company, but all of his guitars were built by Grover because Grover worked for Wayne. Oh yeah. So there's a documentary about all that. Yeah, like on Amazon. So Prime. Wayne was basically like a repair shop / painting kind of studio, and then Grover started working there, and Grover started building guitars for people who walk in the door and say, "Hey, I want this, but I want this instead." Yeah. So it was like a custom shop basically. Valley Arts was happening at the same time, by the way, and Valley Arts it was all of it in like San Dimas area in LA. But I'm sure one Carvin was happening around then too. That's true. And Carvin was like more of more like Peavey in the sense they kind of did everything, right? Yep. But for the guitars, all the Guitar Hero guys like Van Halen was like the biggest. Once Van Halen put his stamp of approval, then everybody just the floodgates opened. Everyone wanted a Charvel. It's Eddie Van Halen's playing that guitar. At the same time, Floyd Rose develops the double locking bridge, and then that didn't come till after I think like 80s when that happened, 80, 81. Yep. And then there's also the the aftermarket pickup industry with guys like Larry DiMarzio and Seymour Duncan even before
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that's all kind of happening around that same time, that late 70s era.
How cool.
I know. I always think that how cool it would been like being in LA at like 81.
Oh, it'd be the best thing ever.
So cool. But anyway, long story short, James Tyler guitars kind of grew out of that Valley Arts branch, right? And then all the session guys like Luke started playing them, and when Dan Huff got there in the late 80s, he was playing it. And Dan Huff from Giant's probably the one who's most closely associated with James Tyler guitars. And they're fabulous guitars. They're incredible. But I just found out recently they're doing like an Indonesian line now. So they've got their guitars manufactured overseas too. So I'm not saying anything negative about Indonesian built guitars.
No. Some are better than others.
So is that a good move though? Is the question I have. Like you have this brand that you built up that's kind of got this legendary following. People know, okay, this is quality. This is super high end. When you start importing guitars from Indonesia, and we're not talking about cheap. They're not making guitars for $300. Like the cheap imported ones are like $1,500-$1,700.
Yeah, so I'll
that's
preface this by saying, and this is just because I'm an old guy that's been in the industry for a long time, like 30-something years, right?
Yep.
I'm not paying $1,500 for something that's not Japanese or American or Canadian.
Well, I mean,
period.
You could argue that there's value there. You're getting a lot of guitar for the money, but
I know.
Depending on where it's manufactured. I guess the question is that does that dilute the brand? Does it make the brand like less interesting or less valuable? Does it do anything? Does it make it better because now it's going to broaden the people who can get their hands on these guitars?
I mean, for James Tyler guitars, it's not like Fender introducing Squier or like Gibson introducing Epiphone.
Well, it's like a high-end boutique. Basically, what they're saying is we have this untouchable guitar that most people can't afford, like $5,000 guitar, right? But we're gonna get you'll be able to get a Tyler, but you can get it for $1,500 to $1,800.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like the general pub, like the person who's pining for a James Tyler guitar has to first know about James Tyler guitars.
Okay, so let's assume they do.
Which is a very, very small. I mean, dude, more people know about Sir guitars than they do about James Tyler guitars.
Sir guitars got some well-known people who play those guitars too. You got people like Pete Thorne's on that group. I'm trying.
Reb Beach.
Reb Beach has been repping Sirs forever.
Yeah.
There's a couple other guys I'm spacing right now who are Sir players who are fabulous players. I mean, everyone who plays a Sir.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that Guthrie.
Yep.
Had a Sir and a VGA. Ironically, he did the Sir Fredder. That was a guitar he played. So
yeah, I think I think it's a unique scenario for. I think the scenario for James Tyler guitars is different than the scenario for like ESP guitars introducing LTD.
Well, that's different because ESP Guitars was already a worldwide manufacturer. We're talking about a boutique manufacturer who's making high end in small batches, like maybe making a few hundred, maybe 1,000 guitars a year, if that.
Yeah, I wonder.
Does that dilute the brand? Is that a good move? I guess is the question. Because now they're basically the thought is they're going to make up for what they aren't doing that with the volume of they'll sell more guitars.
Yeah.
And would that also increase the prestige of the mainline Tyler guitars? And same thing with like the Music Man guitars. Because you think about it, that even probably is a better example because the Music Man guitars, like the standard Music Man guitars, start in the upper twos up to like about 4,800, somewhere in that 2,800 to $4,800 guitar. When they introduced the Sterling line, which is sort of like stripped down versions of their Nightster guitars, which are still not cheap. Those guys still are right around $1,000 or $700 to $1,000-ish in that
about
range.
$1,200 for like a Petrucci. I mean, and dude, I've played one. I've got a student who had one. Unfortunately, that guitar like fell off of his wall hanger.
Oh no!
And like exploded.
That's the worst. Oh my God.
And it's a set neck guitar, right?
Oh, what a bummer! Man.
Oh,
it was a Majesty. It was a Majesty.
Yeah, it was the Majesty. Yeah, but I mean, that was like the neck on that guitar felt great.
Yeah, one of the places I teach at has a Sterling line there, and I've played about 10 of them, and they're all great. Like that, for what you're paying, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're like a $700 guitar, but they got killer fretwork. Great, everything's just really well made.
Yeah,
on those guitars. I'm actually was blown away. I'm like,
absolutely.
Holy crap! That's like as good as it gets in this price range. And I think that the thought process there is probably very much okay. Most people can't afford to buy like a JP16 for $3,700 or whatever. So let's make a stripped down version of that. We'll do kind of two versions of each guitar, like the stripped down version and the real version. And we'll sell a bunch of those because of people who can't afford the other guitar. But someone might be able to afford a $1,200 guitar or $1,500 guitar.
So is James Tyler, are they selling direct or through a dealer network?
I think they're doing both, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's kind of tough, right? Like if I'm a guitar shop or if I'm a retailer of any kind, like why do I want to stock your guitar if someone can just go to your website? Like Fender can get away with that because they're Fender.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it comes down to is there might be some. I don't think it's like they have a nation or worldwide network of dealers. I think it's like there's a handful of like boutique dealers who in certain places of the country.
So like the Music Zoo will now stock the
Chicago Music Exchange, that kind of thing. They're gonna have like a handful of places that will do that. And I know that there's actually some of the really big stores will actually have a run of guitars made specifically for them. Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Well, that could give them that definitely gives you a competitive advantage.
Yeah,
if you have the thing that a person wants, right? If I want purple and your competitor,
you better know who you're selling that to. You should
that's right.
But a lot of those bigger stores like the Chicago Music Exchanges of the world, there was that one Thomann's in Germany.
In Germany,
that kind of thing. That's a place like where they would want something like that because they have the audience or the clientele for it. A Guitar Center down in LA would be a place that you might want to have something like that. So I don't think it's a situation where they're going to the NAMM show and trying to get a bunch of dealers that do orders. I think they're just basically doing it direct, and then if someone wants one at a store, they'll sell it to that store.
I mean, I guess the only risks are I'm
thinking for the brand, like the brand.
For the brand, like, is it going to cannibalize any sales? Like, is there someone who would have saved up for just like 6 more months and bought the real thing that's then going to bite on the cheaper thing?
I don't know.
How many of those people are there?
How many people are already priced out though? How many people there's no way they're going to be able to afford that $4,800 guitar? I just can't do it.
And so then, because
there's a lot of people who might need to save up for 6 months for the $1,200 guitar. You know what I mean? It's
and if you're just getting another Indonesian for $1,200 or $1,500, if you're just getting an Indonesian guitar that has James Tyler stamped on it, like, how is it any better than another Indonesian guitar? How is it better than a Jackson Pro Series?
Well, it's going to come down to the specs, like what the neck specs are, and what the most of the time, a lot of times actually the hardware and electronics are still pretty great in those guitars. They're actually not, there'll be Duncan pickups or something. There'll be like real pickups in that. You know what I mean?
If the hardware is good or appreciably better, right? Like, I mean, I
assume that the USA stuff is probably better than the Indonesian stuff. The high end stuff is going to be that, but it's probably solid. I know for me, if I had worked hard to build my name as this. I'm this company. I'm James Tyler. I'm PRS. I'm Music Man. I wouldn't want to like put out some shit product that's got my name on it.
Oh no! Look, it's going to be good, and the quality and the QC is going to be good. But I just, there's a lot more competition. So I just don't. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know. Like, does it sully the brand? I just don't think James Tyler is a big enough fish for it. I guess it can only help because because now if you're doing a search for a guitar for $1,500, and if your search engine optimization includes James Tyler guitars with all those other stuff and your marketing's on point, then it can only be good for the brand because that person would never even know they existed otherwise.
Do you feel like the Music Man and PRS lessen their brands when they started doing the import lines? Do you feel like that people look at them differently now because they do that?
I think it depends on how you do it.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I mean, look how those guys. We'll use those two examples of PRS.
I think Music Man again. I think Music Man did a great job, right?
Yeah.
Like, PRS is just not my kind of guitar.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people who would be their kind of guitar, and I think what it did is it kind of opened up. Like, I know they had this guitar they called the Torero back in the day with the Floyd and 2 EMGs and stuff, and it was
PRS.
Yeah, PRS, and it was like a $599 guitar or something like that. And I remember thinking, okay, there's a lot of like metal dudes who'd want to maybe be interested in a 24 fret, 24 3/4 scale.
Yeah, but a metal dude's not going to be stoked about the PRS body shape.
Maybe not. Depends on the metal dude. You know what I mean?
I guess so. I guess if you're Mark Tremonti, you are.
I guess that you also would, you're opening up that market too. So you already have like the blues based, like classic rocker guy who kind of, I guess, vaguely wants a Les Paul-y kind of guitar, but slightly more modern. Maybe you got that guy already, but you don't have the metal guy. So you need a guitar to sell to the metal guy. You need a guitar to sell to the blues guy.
Right. So you've got to compete with LTD, which is a great guitar for the money.
Well, Ibanez is doing the same thing.
Yep, or like an Ibanez 4 Series. Yeah.
Every manufacturer is doing the same. They're trying to shoot for the same market.
So, dude, when you can get a Japanese-built Ibanez RG550, like, that's hard to compete with.
Yeah, and those were going for what, like about 14-ish? Is that?
Well, they were selling for like $800, $900
really? They're gotten down that
years
cheap?
ago.
Really?
Yeah, dude, that's like
about the new one. They're made in Japan?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually really shocked that the Japanese guitar was able to be that.
Yeah, there's a Road Flare Red RG550. It skips music right now.
That's crazy.
It's a Japanese guitar. Like, it's a real pro quality guitar.
That's the price point I would have associated with like a Korean made guitar.
Dude, this is why we love Ibanez.
Yeah. Well, Ibanez is cool. As far as playability, I mean, it's hard to find another manufacturer who's like a mass manufacturer who makes guitars that are as playable as Ibanez guitars. You know what I mean?
I will say that, like, anytime, so I got that snakeskin Warren D Martini that was built in Mexico, which I'll be putting up for sale soon.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, guys, why don't you go to Ryan's
I know,
page.
dude, I know, right? I just like I can tell it's a Floyd Rose 1000 bridge and not an original Floyd. Like it irks me.
I get you.
Right? Like I mean, yeah, it's got Duncan pickups. They sound great. Like there is nothing wrong with the guitar. I just can't get over the fact that I'm playing a Mexican guitar.
So I got three? No, I got two. I have a Charvel San Dimas, and I have an EVH Bumblebee. Both made in Mexico. Awesome guitars, man. They're actually really well made. Yeah,
dude, they are.
I mean, that's the sweet. I mean, the guitars that I use when I play live and when I record are my VGAs.
VGAs, yeah.
But that's my main guitars. But if I'm gonna get a guitar that's gonna go, kick around and teach with or something like that, then that's something like those guitars are really the quality you get for the money spent.
Right.
That's that kind of what's the value you're getting on that guitar.
So like my 550, like it lives at my studio. It skips a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's. Yeah, but it's Japanese.
I get you. But that being said, though, no one cares.
Well, no, but I mean, I care.
Like right now, today, I'm going to be teaching with my Indonesian-made Kramer Night Swan.
Yes, which is great, and it's well built, and yours feels great. Okay, so here's another thing, right? Yeah. So I've played, like your Night Swan feels great.
Yeah.
I've played other of that series that didn't feel great, and I know setups and everything, but I think what you get when you spend like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a high-end guitar.
Oh, that's the same difference between like a Camry and like a Maserati.
Except the Maserati breaks down all the time.
I'm just saying, like, as far as like you can tell, there's a lot of Okay, I'll put an example like a BMW versus say like a Ford. There's nothing wrong with a Ford. Fords are fine. You know what I mean? But BMW, there's just a lot more attention to detail. Every little thing is better.
Well, I mean, I'm talking like consistency, right? Like the wood, like the wood they're using is more consistent. Like they just,
Yeah, everything is the tolerances are a lot more.
The tolerances are tighter, right? Like you could blindfold me and put any
fretwork is flawless.
Right, the fretwork's flawless, exactly. But when you dip down into like lower price, so you might get a really good one.
Yeah, and you might
where the fretworks. So like the fretworks flawless
mass
on
manufacturing,
right? Yeah. So like your Night Swan, the frets are flawless.
Yeah.
The next Night Swan that came off the production line might not be flawless.
Yeah, that's
the thing.
I mean, I just bought it because it's a nostalgic, fun little thing.
I love it. It's a great guitar.
It's my black and white Charvel. It's like my Jakey Lee guitar.
Dude, I came very close to buying that same exact Night Swan.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I was very close.
It just makes me happy looking at it. Just like like the 12-year-old me inside just is smiling, like, oh my god, a Night Swan. It's like it's a
and that's the standard, right? If 12-year-old me thinks it would be awesome, then it gets the seal of approval.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what's funny? I guess that this last NAMM show, PV just reintroduced the Vandenberg guitar.
Yeah, I saw, and those are made in Czechoslovakia.
What, really?
Yep.
Well, here's the question that immediately I thought of, and we'll get back to the boutique thing. Is like, okay, you and me would be stoked for that. Like anybody like 40 and up, it's like, holy shit, that's the Vandenberg.
Yeah.
Like, does anybody younger than that have any clue what that even is?
Oh, no.
Was that a big enough of thing for long enough a time that anyone cares and has massive nostalgia for it?
Luckily, it's a cool body shape.
It's a great guitar.
Right, so I could see if you
really
were like
slim neck, and the heel joints really kick ass for a PV. I mean, they were really a thing about playability back in those days.
Yeah, so I can see if you were like a younger metal person, they've got like a matte black with like red trim, red binding. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's got the V inlays on it. If they would just put like pentagram inlays on it, I would have already clicked buy.
Well, they have the pink one, they have the white one too. I mean, they have they have the kind of the standard ones you would associate with Adrian Vandenberg from that time period, like the slit tongue Vandenberg kind of thing.
Totally.
Which I think is a badass guitar. I mean, I saw them like, oh, that's rad.
Yeah. And, dude, great guitar. Yeah.
You know what? Until I looked at how much they're selling them for. I was like,
like $2,000. Right?
I was like, what? No, it's like
which I don't know, man. So
that's where the Night Swan, Kramer's doing it right. They're part of Gibson, but like they're selling those for like $900, like $950, something like that.
There's a great value.
Yeah, under $1,000, and it's like it hits that sweet spot of that nostalgic. Oh, when I was a kid, I wanted one of those, but it's not going to make you go, oh shit, that's more than I want.
Right. It's like I can fuck off that money.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
You can find a way to spend $950 or whatever.
My stock portfolio lost that much since like 10 a.m.
Well, yes, last hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly, So,
but that's the thing that I think that they maybe PV's missing a little bit is that sort of like, okay, you need to find a way to manufacture it in a way that's not quite there. That's because I don't think that there's not any young audience who's pining for that guitar. The people you're trying to sell that guitar to are the people who grew up listening to Whitesnake and stuff and seeing Vandenberg as a guitar hero and wanting a piece of that nostalgia. And $2,000 is a pretty steep price for nostalgia. You know what I mean?
Agreed, right. Although you could still get that for, the up in El Dorado Hills guy,
I guess,
that like 20 years ago, it used to be like,
El Dorado Hills, by the way, is a suburb of Sacramento.
Oh,
where a lot
right,
of wealthy folks live.
Or Placer County guy.
Yeah, I live in Placer County. Granite
I'm sorry,
Bay.
man. It's okay. We're still friends.
These are all like, wealthy suburbs of Sacramento.
Yeah, so... so it used to be, Grandpa riding down on his $50,000 Harley to get the Paul Reed Smith because he's into the blues, of course, right? Now it's, hey, I've got nostalgia for the 80s.
55-year-old guy who grew up listening to Whitesnake.
Right, so I'm going to buy, whatever Kramer's got, So this is why I like the RG 550 so much, because it's, yes, it's the original 87 colors, but... like it's not a signature model or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of just generically that time period.
Yeah, and Ibanez has always kind of maintained a 550 of some kind in their product line.
Kramer they have the Pacer and they have the what is the other one? There's Pacer and then Striker. They have a couple. Yep. They have a couple of series that are kind of just generic, like that kind of.
But thing. They're a subsidiary of Gibson now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Whereas
it's just like like Charvel and Jackson are part of
Fender specialty brands. So, which is great because at least
EVH is part of Fender.
Yeah, which is great because Fender makes sure that those are quality guitars.
You know what I would say though is EVH is the one that really started kicking the door open on the nostalgia thing. They started making the Stripe series guitars and they were making them for like under $1,000.
Yep.
And everyone's like, oh man, I want to go get it. I did it. I'm got my Bumblebee guitar. Hell yeah, that's rad.
Right, I'm gonna get the Frankenstein.
And then ESP did a run of Lynch guitars too. They're like in that same price point, like the
LTD Lynch guitars.
That's all they sell here in the US is the LTD stuff. But the LTD Lynch guitar is made for like $800, and it's got the kamikaze graphics and stuff like that. It's the same thing. It's that.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I've played the ESP kamikaze. Skip had one in his collection. I got to play it. Man, that guitar weighed a ton.
Wasn't it made of solid maple?
I think it's a solid maple guitar. Like might be it's like a 20-pound solid body guitar. It's heavy.
That's why he's probably using basswood now.
That's why George worked out so much.
That was a mistake though, man.
Yeah, right.
I believe I can't remember I don't know if I was on the show. I remember doing a show in like the late '90s with my band, and he was there doing the same show. We did the thing with him, and
you sat down on him because you thought he was the leather couch.
This was but it was George Lynch. George Lynch doing rap metal era kind of thing. And,
fuck.
And then we did another show with him about 8 years later where he was going back to just doing with Oni Logan on vocals. That was later.
That's cool.
That was later. Like 8 years later, we did a real Lynch Mob show.
Right. So Oni Logan was not rapping.
Yeah, no, but they had some like weird looking like blonde spiked hair.
He was going by the name OG Logan.
I remember like looking at like what's happening. Like Lynch is out there playing. He's got his kamikaze guitar, but he's all bulked out, and he's got like this blonde guy with spiked hair rapping. And a bunch of like 20-year-old dudes like look like they're from Korn. This is like 99 or 2000.
Oh god, those were such awkward.
And I remember thinking like, what in the hell is going on? And I remember him trying to play Mr. Scary, but because he's so roided out, his fingers like couldn't move. So
lifting heavy weights it messes with your grip.
Yeah, it definitely did. And then I remember just being like so just like heartbroken, like oh god, George Lynch is someone I grew up worshiping when I was a kid.
When so you're like you're like 4 or 5 years into the grunge apocalypse, and then they come
also
for George.
my band's opening for Lynch. This is so great. I dreamed about this my whole life. Oh. That's right. It's the late 90s. Yeah. Even the 8 years earlier, he was freaking playing shows with like the Scorpions and stuff. It's like it's just so weird to think how fast. I was trying to tell my students the other day like how fast it happened. It's like
I know.
It was like by March it was cool. In October it wasn't. It was like crazy how quick it was.
So I will say, I know. It's
we lived through it. I know.
We lived. We survived.
We're just sharing our trauma, people. I know you're saying out, but it's
I will say that when I grew up like coveting ESP guitars. There's only
Queensryche, Lynch,
right. And there was
yeah.
only one place in town, K&K Music, that carried ESP that I knew of. Right,
yeah.
I used to cut class in high school and go down to on Cottage and Fulton.
Wow,
cut class at El Camino High School.
There you go, free advertisement for a store that doesn't exist anymore.
Right, and so, but they would have ESP, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like back then, I mean, they were like $1,500, $2,000, about what would be like $3,000-$4,000 in today's
maybe more
in today's weakening dollar.
Yeah, maybe more.
But that was like a guitar to aspire to, right? And then I remember when LTD came out and they pulled most of the Japanese made ESPs from the American market because it cost too much to import them, right?
Yeah.
I just remember being so fucking disappointed.
So you felt like that really made you change the way you looked at ESP?
Yep, it totally did. Well, I mean, like the actual ESPs were great, but like, I mean, back then, like I didn't realize that ESP was still making all of their awesome guitars just in Japan.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought they just became like a Korean guitar, like teenage me.
Like they
was
just
like,
stopped making good guitars. We're just gonna make these cheap ones.
we're gonna make these Korean guitars. Yeah, because like my first electric guitar was a Korean guitar. My second electric guitar was a Korean guitar. So, like, you've got to understand, when Scott and I were growing up, like your first guitar was a shitty acoustic, and you practiced and practiced.
You
and
probably
practiced.
got from somebody just for free or something.
Yeah. Well, my grandma got me mine.
Yeah.
So
But for me, I stole my sister's old guitar that she stopped playing like 8 years before.
Nice. and you actually stole it from like the Sears department store.
No,
She was just playing it in the aisle where you and you just yanked it and just ran right out of the store, right? Man, I'm you could claim some crime.
No,
Anyway. So okay, so then you got so then it was like my plywood Memphis brand.
You and I both have that in common. We have
yep.
the plywood Memphis is our first electric.
Yep, and then I got my.
By the way, probably bought a guitar player music, right?
Yeah, guitar player music. That's right.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, and then I got my and then after working at Guitar Player for a little bit, like after I turned 16, I was able to afford to. John McIntyre special ordered it for me. It was a Sunburst Hamer Centaurus Slammer series.
Nice. I know the Slammer series. That's before they got really shitty though.
Yeah, it was before they got shitty.
Yeah,
so I had a tobacco Sunburst like with the licensed Floyd on it, and I loved that guitar.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't like, after a while I started noticing its flaws, right?
Yeah. Because of course, that mid-price guitar you're gonna have flaws.
Yep. And then Guy Tickner sold me his USA N4 like when I was 18 or something like that, right? So that was my first American made guitar.
Yeah.
Yep. And after that N4, I never looked back.
Yep.
Dude, it's got to be built in Japan, the United States, or Canada.
That's so funny. My first nice guitar was a Kramer Aerostar. That was my first nice guitar, and then
it had like the sliding side door. And it was built on,
exactly.
It was like built on a truck frame.
Okay, lots of room for the kids. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then my second nice guitar was also a Kramer. I got a bunch of Kramers back in those days, like with the Floyd and stuff. And it was, I remember I got one guitar that looked like Mark Kindle's Kramer. I thought that was
okay. Nice.
I was a big Great White fan back in the day.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, that looks pretty badass. It's got the Floyd and everything. And I'm thinking my first really nice guitar was my N2, which was an import. That was probably the one. That's one I went to music school with. Other than that, then after that, I was an Ibanez guy for a few years, and then I got my VGA deal. So that's kind of my journey with it. But it's Super Strats with Floyds.
Yeah, dude, you're the first person I ever knew who had the original Prestige guitar.
Yeah. The 3120,
cool guitar,
which I actually ended up giving it to the Scott Allen Project Webmaster as a gift when I got my VGA deal.
Nice.
Because I couldn't play these anymore. I'm like, hey man, thank you for all your work here. This is for you.
That's so fucking cool of you.
And it was cool. Well, I mean, I could have paid him actual money. He's webmastering for me.
Yes, but the guitar was priceless.
That was true, and also the love that went with it.
Yes.
But anyway, I mean, it's weird. I look at those companies doing that, and I think, okay, smart business from a business perspective. But are you eventually? I mean, if you look at the big picture, are you cheapening your brand by doing that?
I feel like LTD for a long time for me, and I mean, again, they were still making great guitars. I felt like the United States market got abandoned. Right. Yeah. It was definitely like, okay, wait, by the time I'm old enough to earn enough money to buy a real ESP, they aren't going to be available. Yeah. That's fucking lame.
It's almost like aspiring your whole life to become a virtuoso guitarist, and then when you try and form bands in the late 90s, it's like all of a sudden rock and roll's not cool anymore.
Right, dude. No, it was a mini.
I'm glad that could never happen.
It was like a guitar retail grunge apocalypse. Yes.
Well, I mean, I think of the ESP though. I think I've always thought of them as a big. They're kind of akin to like Ibanez or Jackson, like one of those big manufacturers. Things like Music Man and PRS and Tyler guitars, and one thing you'll notice is that Sir has never done that. And VGA has never done that.
Yeah, Sir's never going to do that.
And exactly, and VGA is never going to manufacture anything outside of France. It's always going to be built in France.
Yep.
And Sir, I've actually heard John Sir talk about that, like the idea of doing an import line and stuff like that. And he said exactly the thing that we're talking about now. He didn't want to like lessen his brand.
Right, because there's certain once you own a guitar like a Sir, hopefully you don't need to be the greatest guitar player on earth, but you should have kind of earned it.
Yeah, well, you gotta at least be serious enough to be willing to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, right.
instrument.
totally.
You know what I mean?
There you go. That's a better way to think about it.
Probably a very well-heeled hobbyist who's very into it. You know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But they're great guitars. I mean, you know what?
Great guitars.
I got not to trash things. I have nothing against Shure guitars, but the VGAs are so far superior. they've just solved all the problems that are wrong with guitars. And I think like okay, VGA did it right. They've done all these things that just fix problems that make the guitar flawless. And then I look at Shure, and Shure's like a really fantastic version of a Fender. You know, it's like it's the same stuff. They haven't changed much of anything. They're not doing, as far as I know, they're not doing the graphite reinforcement rods. They're not doing
There's
anything.
attention to detail, though.
There is. No, they're incredibly well made guitars, but they're still building off of an old model. It's almost like you have the best made Model T guitar. Model T.
I know Carvin's doing the graphite reinforcement.
Charvel, dude, Charvel for the freaking Mexican import stuff's got graphite.
I'm not sure if Comparison is, but I love the Comparison guitar so much.
But there's just so much that other manufacturers are doing that make it's all about performance and making it absolutely so it solves all the problems with the original designs. And I feel like what Sur's doing is they're just doing a great version of the original version.
Yeah, I can see that.
Does that make sense? And that's one of the reasons that they don't. It doesn't appeal to me. It's like I
get that.
I want you to solve a problem. That's what VGA is doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think the reason that doesn't happen more often is that guitar players are pretty conservative, not politically, but like they want the guitar that their hero played.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
I just went by Kramer Knight's song because one of my heroes played it.
Yeah, like historically, well, yeah. I mean, electric guitar players for years have been. We played amplifiers based on like 1930s technology.
Yep.
Right, and the form factor for the electric guitar like hadn't changed much since the 50s.
Yeah,
like we mashed
not until the early 80s, really.
Right. Well, I mean, Eddie mashed Strats and Les Pauls together and made Super Strats,
and they made a whammy bar that actually worked well.
Right.
You know
right.
What I mean? And
yeah, that's why it still blows my mind. Like these Fender like Jaguars with the old spring trim. Like, yeah.
Or anything with a Bigsby. Like, what are we doing? Exactly.
Dude, there's one in the room.
Oh my God!
I know.
It was here the whole time.
Scott, there's a
It's
Bigsby
creeping
right
up behind
you.
me.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I can sense it because there's nothing I hate more than a Bigsby tremolo. It's like
you can sense the dissonance of being slightly out of tune
and the not working well to do what its job is in any way. So I don't know. It's so lame. I mean, I look at that, to me, like the guitars that you and I love, to me it's like when they figured out all the issues and they started fixing those issues, that's the guitars we like. Okay, these are guitars that are about performance.
Exactly,
that's what they're about. They're not about some aesthetic old-timey thing.
I mean, they can also look cool.
All of them did look cool, but they were solving problems. They're
right.
Like, making the guitar easier to play, figuring out how to get the heel joint out of the way, making sure the guitar stayed in tune.
Yeah, to make it more stable.
Yeah, just doing everything they could
and more durable.
You could play more wild stuff on it and have it not freak out on you. You know, which is the whole point of all those guitars. The VGA is the pinnacle of that, in my opinion. Not just plugging them because they've put the chip in my brain. But that being said,
I'm just going to say Comparison one more time so they finally give me an endorsement.
There you go. Keep saying it.
There you go. Comparison.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't get that, but you know what? I'm sure that like the old timey guy who wants to play like a vintage Strat doesn't get why we love the Floyds and stuff. Yeah, it's like I guess it's just what you're into and what you grew up with, but
I mean, some of it's probably an aesthetic thing,
and it's like that's what the fan fret multi-scale 9-string guitars and stuff like that too. It's like that just feels kind of silly to me. Yeah.
Well, actually, so on the 5-string bass that I'm pointing to, the multi-scale actually solves an important problem.
No, I understand,
which is the flabby low B string. Like I wasn't going to buy a 5-string bass with a flab. Right.
Yeah. 8-string, same thing. So the tension all makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
But the headless, fan fret guitar thing becoming a thing is like I don't look at that and think that looks cool. I'm like, well, okay, I get it.
Well, but headless provides better tuning stability.
I get it.
Theoretically. I mean, if you know how to tie your strings on and have a locking nut, you're fine.
Yeah, which I would never have a guitar that doesn't have a locking tuner or locking nut.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
But that being said, it just doesn't look cool to me. When I look at that, I'm like, that looks so cool. I don't think it looks cool.
I can see how, like, for doing Zoom lessons, having like a more compact guitar would be a little bit more comfortable.
Maybe especially
without having to like spin a headstock
one
around
of those Japanese apartments are like
right
50 square feet or whatever.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like if you have to do a Zoom lesson in like a nap pod at the airport, then the headless guitar makes a lot of sense.
All set, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's more about just me being an old man looking at the next generation saying your stuff is garbage.
Well, the headless design's been around since the 80s too. Steinberger did it,
and Guido Brada and Eddie Van Halen were famous for playing.
That's right.
And actually Mark Diglio from XYZ too played get a headless
Just the problem back then is that you had to buy special strings that were double ball end strings. Now you can just use a regular string and
you
it
can let
pinches.
your balls fly whichever way you want.
That's exactly
which
right.
Is the way it's meant. You can even cut them off and stick them in the thing.
Yeah, you don't need to be tripping over those balls anymore.
Right.
No more tripping balls.
Apple White will be proud.
Yeah, that's right. Apple White.
Hey, if you're gonna catch the rocket, you got to do what you got to do.
That's
man.
right.
It's totally true.
So now, like ironically enough, the string pinches into the headstock the same way that it pinches into a Floyd Rose bridge.
Yeah, it is
on modern headless guitars.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of looked at that and just thought it's not for me. That's the.
So some people will tell you that the headstock is responsible for a certain amount of resonance in the instrument, so your tone and sustain could take a hit by cutting it off.
The best secret I've found to getting awesome guitar tone?
How about practice?
How about being a great guitar player?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the key to getting a good tone. You know what it is, guys? I'm letting the cat out of the bag right now. The secret to getting great guitar tone is to play guitar really well.
Yes. And,
that's the key.
Choosing notes better.
Yeah, and having good vibrato and understanding how to let sympathetic notes ring and just being a great player is the biggest thing you can do.
Wait, you mean it? Like if I buy 3 more overdrive pedals, that's not going to make me better?
You need a flanger and a phaser and a reverb too.
Oh fuck!
That's the other part. I didn't.
Okay.
Wait, we are trying to prop up the industry, so we should. No, I'm sorry. Buy as many pedals as you can.
Yes,
that's
buy
the key.
pedals. Buy lots of pedals.
That's the key to the tone and more guitars because you have to find that one.
Yes.
There's a great tone out there in one of those guitars, and if you buy as many as possible, one of them is gonna have a great tone.
Well, hey, you know what? So I just became the owner of my second Comparison
Congratulations.
M3. Thank you very much. I got my. So now I have the amethyst, the purple one. That was my first favorite color, and now I got my second favorite color, which is called Moonstone.
Nice.
But you can't just have one of a type of guitar. You have to have a backup for that guitar.
Yep, exactly.
So there you go. So everybody out there, whatever guitar you're playing, you need to get another one that's identical to it for when you break a string on that other guitar, and you need to go to Skips and buy the new one.
Yes, unless you live in New York or
No, you can buy it online.
Oh, never mind. You can do it online.
Then go to skipsmusic.com
and order it online. Web and order it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What's funny? The Comparison. One of the guitar players I've recently gotten kind of hip to that plays Comparisons is Rob Marcello.
Oh, nice.
Who's a guitarist for the band called The Defiance. He actually is kind of part-time in Danger as well. Rad guitar player. So great.
Which model is he playing?
I have no idea. I didn't look that deep into it. I know he plays Comparisons though.
Nice. They make a version. So the Horus is like the slant body 27 frets, kind of super modern super Strat.
Yep.
But they also make what's called a Dellinger, which is kind of more of a traditional Strat body.
Okay. I don't know which one he's playing, but I remember thinking, oh, he's playing a Comparison. That's cool. He's such a great player.
Oh, Michael Romeo plays Comparison.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, another great guitar player.
So there you go.
Fabulous. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, the Tom England from Evergrey also plays Comparison.
Yep, and Adam Drukowitz from Killswitch Engage. He's a Comparison guy.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. To find out more information about Ryan and I and to figure out where you can fill our album releases and follow us on social media, please visit our website at xaegisband.com.
That's www.exaegisband.com.
Wow, I was waiting for it. That went on.
Yeah.
There you'll find links to our social media. Please follow us on social media, and please make sure to like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast. And we'll see you next week. Good job.
Peace.